Good evening, everyone. The time is 7 p.m., and I will now call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Before the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Trooper First Class Aaron Pelletier, who was killed in the line of duty last week and laid to rest today. So would you all please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Next item on tonight's agenda is acceptance of the agenda. I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion we accept the agenda.
Thank you both. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. Next up is approval of the minutes from our regular meeting on May 15th.
I'll move that we approve the minutes from
Second
that
that.
meeting.
Thank you. Any errors, changes, omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. We also have the special meeting on May 14th. I believe that was the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and Board of Education.
I make a motion we accept that.
Second.
Great. Any errors, changes, omissions? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. All right, so under communications and correspondence this evening, I have a few items that I want to talk about and have been shared with me. The first is the town received some great news today. I'm not sure if you saw the governor's press release that went out this morning, but the Bond Commission has slated funds for the dewatering of Job's Pond on the Bond Commission agenda for when they meet this Friday. So if all goes well on Friday, we will have funds appropriated which will cover the local match. You may recall we have received federal funds for 75% of the project, and this would cover the remaining 25% of the project. So no local funds would need to be spent on this. However, there's a great deal of grant administration and project. The town would be the sponsor of the project, so there's still a lot of work to do. But I do want to thank Governor Lamont, the Bond Commission. I want to thank our state representatives, Senator Needleman, State Rep. Christy Carpino, for all their work to get us to this point. It's really great to have that. Also, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has been instrumental, as well as Demis as well.
Ryan, is there anybody going to be presenting our case to the Bond Commission? If they asked you to attend, or I presented before the Bond Commission before, and I know they may ask you for an explanation of the process. I'm assuming someone from the governor's office or somebody will be there to do that.
Yeah, once you're on the agenda, the hard part with the Bond Commission is getting on the agenda. It's not just Job's Pond on the agenda. There's a host of...
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, and so once you're on, you're on. The governor wouldn't put a press release out if this wasn't going through.
Good.
So
Okay.
I'm not concerned about that, but there's still a lot of work to do, and so I know the residents at Job's Pond, we have some here today, and there's a lot of work that the town will have to do. We are working on access agreements with neighboring property owners so we can pipe that water to the river, as well as we're working with DEEP as far as contracting, permitting goes, and how we can get permits moved along as quickly as possible. And also we still are working on the procurement for a contractor that will do the work of pumping out Job's Pond. So there's a lot more to do, but this is certainly a really positive step in the right direction tonight. So actually, we're going to talk about Job's Pond later because we're going to need a special town meeting as well. I also have some good news on, we had an Eagle Scout project that Logan Prince completed picnic tables at the Senior Center. So I just want to, before we get into the weeds of everything else, I want to thank Logan. The tables look great. They are handicap accessible. So, and they're made of oak. They're beautiful. So I encourage everyone to take a look at those. Also, I want to just mention MCRC, the Middlesex County Revitalization Commission, released the grant, the 2024 grant recipients. And the town of Portland had 4 grant recipients that won grants, I should say, this year. And so they are, Hometown Garage earned, I should say, a $6,242 grant for a refrigerant handling system. Olson Backman LLC is going to receive a $12,244 grant for infrastructure and staff training. And River Ridge Farm in Portland is receiving $15,000 to repair and replace a greenhouse. And Valley Construction has been awarded a $25,000 grant for expansion, which will also increase employment as well. So I want to congratulate those 4 businesses. The town of Portland made out very well, $58,486 in total for grant recipients, and only $200,000 was awarded in Middlesex County. So the town of Portland received over 25% of the grant award. So I want to congratulate those businesses, and we also had the most number of applications too. So I think it helps that we got the word out. I think we did a nice job helping these people know about this. So all right, with that, I have 2 other communications to say. We have Quarry Day this Saturday, so I just want to put that on everyone's radar, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Riverfront Park. And next Saturday is Juneteenth, from 10:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Portland Middle School. So I hope to see everyone there. Those are my communications. So with that, we'll move to public comment. And so I was asked about public comment this evening, and I did check with some of the selectmen who said we could have a 10-minute public comment section today, but I do want to stress that we have a very long agenda. So if anyone wants to comment, if they can keep their comments as brief as possible, that would be helpful. So if anyone is here in the audience and wishes to comment, you can do so now.
Anybody before me? How about we start with that? Okay.
Oh, do you have?
I do.
Yeah.
You're welcome to go first. I might do it for the 9 3/4 minutes.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Can you come up and to the microphone and just state your name and address?
Sure thing. Address is like
Where you live.
Where? My name's Jimmy Kask. I have a business here in Portland, and I believe did I speak with you yesterday on the phone by chance?
I don't.
I spoke with Orion,
Maybe you'll help him?
possibly in charge of like maintenance.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And I understand we're doing some paving this year in Portland and doing some chip sealing. I have a business where we do luxury car storage and detailing. We're on Freestone Avenue Extension, and we just chip sealed that road. And I was gonna see if there may be funding to be able to pave the small section of Freestone Ave Extension. I know it's a big ask, but I don't know how this stuff exactly works. So if we're in that area and we could pave that area instead of having, Ferraris and nice, beautiful cars drive up and down the chip seal, that would be, beautiful. So that was my comment.
All right, thank you.
You got it.
We can talk about. We're going to be talking about roads later
Perfect.
tonight, so
Okay.
we can talk about that with
Cool.
the Public Works Director. I don't have an answer though.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you. Appreciate it.
All right. Anyone else? Name and address, please.
Thought I was done for a while speaking. Ben Serb, 139 West Cotton
Hold
Hill
on,
Road.
Ben. Hold on. I got it. Let me just.
Come on, we're really gonna do that?
Yep.
I think we all know it by now.
Okay,
Till midnight.
the reason I'm here tonight is the Board of Education has now voted to the plan that they like the best at this point. I have a major problem with it, and the biggest problem is the numbers. So their new plan is approximately $84 million over 30 years. That plan does not include the 11 or 12 million that's needed at the high school currently for identified deficiencies. So you have a grand total of 96,000 plus some interest on the other, and I understand that number will come down a little bit if we do the HVAC of $1.5 million, but they're 20% off, so it'll go back up. But so at the end of the day, that plan is about $100 million to the taxpayers. They want to finance it over 30 years. So number one, that is ridiculous. The building will have major deficiencies in 20 years using a track record that Portland has. Portland's high school, middle school was renovated a little over 19 years ago, and it already currently has 12 million in deficiencies, give or take, that need to be identified, addressed. So why would we finance something for 30 years when it's probably going to start to have major problems in 20? So I think right off the bat, no. So on your agenda tonight, number 9, I think you should all vote no. Don't even go any further. So what I believe should happen is 100 million is too much for this little town over 30 years. And those are the real numbers. People, we can split hairs over the last, but the 84 is what they presented. I also do like what they presented. They presented temporarily closing Valley View School. In their plan, they want to close Valley View School for 1 to 3 years, depending on how long it takes to build the new complex and how long the off-gassing is and blah, blah, blah. So what I want to do is just close Valley View. I think it's the most responsible. When I was on the Board of Education for 7 or 8 years, we always discussed if we had to close one facility, there is only one that could be closed. If you look at it from a physical standpoint, every school in the town of Portland is a 4-grade or greater school except Valley View. So let's just talk about how we got to this point. I have no idea. If you had to close the school tomorrow, which I am at the end of this going to ask you to close Valley View at the end of the year. If you had to close the school tomorrow, there is only physically one you could do it, without a renovation or without an addition at any other school. Those are facts. Valley View is the smallest school. Think about what I'm saying. I have no idea how that plan never even made the spreadsheet. The original spreadsheet, I believe, had 6 on it. Didn't even make the spreadsheet. So something to me isn't adding up here. So when I was on the Board of Education, it was identified as the only school that could be closed. And now it never even got identified as to making the list. Something's not right. So you close Valley View, just like the superintendent plans on doing if we build the mega complex at Valley View. And we stop right there. We either lease Valley View out or drain the pipes and mothball it, which would be way better for the town of Portland. If we choose to go down the road they want to, they don't even know what they're going to do with the brownstone or Gildersleeve at this point. I don't believe the taxpayers of Portland are ever going to let the brownstone off of our books. I believe that's going to be on our books. It's a part of Portland. It's a part of our history. It's not going anywhere, in my opinion. So that's not going to be a $600,000 savings as they've identified. It will just get shifted over to the general side. There will be a savings of approximately $600. I can agree with that. If they closed Gildersleeve, you get the same savings if we close Valley View. But now we don't have to figure out what to do with Gildersleeve. Valley View, we can keep the complex. I believe we should rent it out. Maybe Oak Hill, maybe the other nonprofit that looked at Gildersleeve. There's other things we could do with the facility. It's tiny. It's the smallest structure we have. Close it. That's simple. Shift all the grades like they wanted to. I have no issue with all the shifting that they said will work for the 3 years. So there's nothing else to really discuss on that. That's what could happen. So you guys have to decide whether this even goes to referendum. I think it shouldn't even go there. I don't think we're there. How can we be there when Valley View wasn't even on that was not even on that spreadsheet? How's that possible? So, all right. So I'm praying there's 4 of you that do not send it. I think it's way too much money. We can't afford $100 million. So what I would like to do is then put the Sightlines report identified $28 million in the rest of the facilities for deficiencies. If we close Valley View, $6 million's off the table, we're down to 22. If you take out generators and the HVAC system that I agree with Dr. Britton that we're going to be trying to do this year, which is about $1.5 million out of that, and if you take out the generators and a few other fluff, we're below 20 million in repairs that we can do and be up to snuff with all of our facilities. If you borrow $20 million over 15 years at the same interest rate, and I would think Tom might be able to get us a better interest rate, using the 4.5 that they used over 30, I'm hoping we could get 4, but using the 4.5 over 15, your payback is 27 million, which the most important part is, okay, what's the payment? The payment for fixing the 4 facilities would be approximately $1.8 million. If you close Valley View, you have a 600 savings. We currently have a $480,000 payment for the high school. That's $1.1 million out of the $1.8 million. If you go the other route, and here's the part I hope you're all listening. If you go the other route, not including the 12 million or anything to do with the 2 schools that you might shut, Gildersleeve and Brownstone, nothing to do with the 12 million, Brownstone or Gildersleeve, you now have to come up with $3.3 million plus change. Good news, you take the same 500 out of our payment that we're paying now, no problem. You lower it, you're still over $2 million in new revenue. could be 2.4, somewhere in that vicinity. Big numbers that we need to come up with. And I know there's, well, maybe the grand list grows, this, that. Big numbers, guys. We have other deficiencies. Sewer, we know has issues. We have water, we know we're doing the right thing there. Good job heading the right way on our water. I love that. But these are all facts. We have big numbers. This is one, and then I'd like to point out their operating costs still keep going up. So on top of it, we want to take the school, the facility costs, increase that tremendously, and the operating costs we really don't have control over, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, if you close Valley View at the end of the year, that's 600 we can now use towards whatever they need. I believe they're asking for 300 and something tonight. Fine, I get it. We don't have options there. But you do have options whether you want to run all these facilities. We don't need Valley View at the end of the year. We don't need it. Superintendent stood up, made it clear. It's no longer, it doesn't need to be used. We can close it. We can do what I just said, spend about 20 million, figure out what you want out of that list. Done. Borrow it, fix everything, conversation's over. Payback would be a little over 25% of what they want this town to pay. We can't afford $100 million. It's that simple. So I'm not bashing anybody, a lot of hard work, thank you. But at the end of the day, if I can save 75 million and it's just as good, and quite frankly, I get to look at the brownstone and my grandchildren look at it, I like that too. $75 million difference between those two plans. And I can't believe that isn't even one of the ones in front of you. Never was. Any questions?
It's public comment.
No, I know, but hey, my public comment is any question.
Fair enough.
All right. And the last, so seeing that I can't, Spring Street, I saw it as one of the roads that we have to repair. Didn't we just redo Spring Street?
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
You'll hear.
Keep that separate. And then on the last one, I know under your executive session, and no, you cannot respond to this. BRT is asking for, you guys are working on the new tax payment. I believe the residential portion needs to be shrunk or taken away. I believe the commercial needs to be increased so we can get the commercial that they're claiming they can't get. So that would be my 2 cents on that. How'd I do, Ryan?
Let's see. 8 minutes, 25 seconds. So I don't know, you have anything else?
Where we're at.
Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, any other public comment in the audience? All right, anyone online that wishes to comment? Just put something in the chat if you'd like to comment. All right, going once. There'll be a second public comment later in the evening, so if you change your mind, you can do so. And with that, we'll move on then to our monthly budget report. Our finance director, Tom Robinson, is
Hey,
with
Ryan,
us.
pardon, sorry for interrupting, but I'm just looking at our agenda, and when we did updates and communication, we didn't do the proclamations for Juneteenth and Pride.
I am so sorry, you were
I
right.
just saw that.
Good catch. Can you, do you want to, yeah, in fact, I even mentioned Juneteenth and I forgot the proclamation. So yes, we have 2 proclamations this evening.
Any chance?
Oh, we, okay, let's just do the proclamation, we'll come back to Dave. So, yeah, do you want to make a motion to accept the proclamations and waive the reading, given the time?
I'd make a motion, due to the extent of the agenda tonight, that we accept the proclamations and we waive the readings for the Juneteenth proclamation and the Pride Month proclamation.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Under discussion, I just want to say that one is Juneteenth. We do recognize that as a holiday. So Wednesday, June 19th, we are off. And as I mentioned, June 15th is the celebration in Portland. And so I hope to see you all there. I know the Solidarity Committee has been doing some terrific work in planning, and it's going to be a really fun event. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also, it's Pride Month. I know the Solidarity Committee a contingent was at the Middletown Pride Fest over the weekend, so I want to thank them for that as well. And so, yeah, 2 important causes. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Any abstention? All right, both proclamations carry. Thank you. So we can go back to, we did have a public comment from Dave Murphy, you said? Okay, if you want to unmute Dave. Dave, are you there? Is he muted or?
He said, I'll wait until later now.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. Monthly budget report. Come on up, Tom. Did you want to note that we're in June? Our fiscal year ends June
Thank you,
30th.
Tom.
So we are very much near the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you, Tom.
Good evening, everyone. A little under the weather, my voice isn't so great. I have the budget revenue report in front of you for May 31st. This month I included a second copy that has the budget to the adjusted budget on it as well. So if you wanted to see the original to the adjusted for the transfer that we've made for fire company, for the, one of the fire vehicles. It's posted in the revenues. We're looking at 0011 property taxes prior year. Throughout the year, we've said we've had improvements in this number. The numbers were strong. We were working through a tax sale process, a tax sale procedure, and it was quite successful, as well as there was just strong back collections as well. So we're budgeted at 255, received 630, 375 to the positive there. Similarly, with a related issue would be property taxes, interest and liens, $150,000 budgeted number, 322,000 in similar rationalization for that overage. 0013 property taxes supplemental. Had a pretty decent, strong budget number in there. There was quite a few new vehicles at higher values, and also some re-registrations that had been lost kind of during the COVID time period that have come back, and vehicles got re-registered, therefore they got assessed in that supplemental phase. Dropping down to the 00312, advanced tax has been, strong coming in this year. We've been following that all year. In May, it did reach over the 175,000 budgeted amount to the 187,791. So we're, continually be positive there. There was a decent conveyance this month with the Oakwood properties. It was around a $6,900 conveyance. So you see that in the $17,000 revenue number there. Next one down is 00313 vital statistics. This one has jumped over the revenue projection. We're in the time period here now with, I guess, marriage license season. So we'll probably see some jump as well within June, anticipated from my discussions with the town clerk. 00324, We're doing well here in private duty. Not necessarily as high as it had been in past years. I would believe some of that is less officers. There's been some less at work coming over from the Middletown area that we had said, and then some of the other major projects, it slowed down a little bit. So, but still a nice positive number there. Expenses will be above that as well, but they're going to be not nearly as high as they had been in the past on that line item. 00328 structural permits. We've been watching that as well for the year. There's been some strong overages out there, some related to Brainerd, some related to other developments that are in town. So that's a positive. Flipping to the next page, again, another one that we've talked about with interest income. There's been the interest rates continue to stay strong. We've had a decent amount of ARPA funds still on hand. Starting to spend some of that down, but throughout the year they were on hand, therefore we were eligible to receive interest on that money. So we had that usually parked in the STIF account, and that was generating some decent revenues there. So we're as well as some of our Liberty Bank and some of the other banks are providing nice interest rates on those. So that's the revenue report. Like I said to you, the next page just shows that total original budget transfers. So this print's a little smaller, so I'd like to show the other version for you. But if you wanted to see where the one transfer that we've posted, just put at approved so far, see how that posts. That you can see that in the report. All right, going to expenditures. Page 4, Fire Marshal. Fire Marshal has had a lot of activity this year, additional time needed for Brainerd Place and other projects in town. I think it was also quite a bit of hours on the spa review. So you're seeing that he's likely going to go over budget in his global budget by the end of this fiscal year. But you see the revenues within structural permits being higher, and that's kind of, you're going to see expenses and things like this line item in engineering, in some of those like land use type activities where you'll see some higher levels due to the higher revenue activity. You're going to also see a higher expenditure activity. Page 7, talking about engineering. Like we see here, the subdivision revenue is in excess of the budget number by about $1,200. Site plan review, as we talked about with some of those, similar to the spa, that's over by about $6,300. Miscellaneous engineering is over by about $21,000. That one's more driven toward, there's been projects that are like things that will possibly or could be a grant or will become a grant. Projects, there's some work with the airline trail itself. There's been some engineering work on that, trying to move that forward, working on easements and the such. And then the other one is the airline parking lot trail project, boat launch project. That one we did receive a grant, but there's been some difficulty within the initial onset of the project to get complete approval on moving forward. So there's been engineering costs in this areas of reshifting the land, like reshifting the design. As the design's not even designed yet, there's a the word, right? There's a kind of like a sample of what it's going to look like, and that drawing has been done and then had to be redone as they moved the trail based upon the review of various wildlife.
Do you want me to talk about this stuff? Do you want me to? We're working, this is the grant that the town received. We received $300,000 from the bond commission to get a river access for the town. And so we've been working with the committee that we established, the River Access Committee. And so the surveyor had gone out there to survey where the access road would go, and there was some wetlands that had to be moved. So that's what Tom's referring to, is that. And we continue to navigate through the requirements that DEEP has put forward for the area. It's in a critical wildlife habitat area, which means that there's more plants and animal species that need to be, looked at and potentially mitigated if they are in the area. I know we found mussels in the area that would have to be mitigated and relocated at some point, but the project's just been a little tedious because of the additional requirements from DEEP.
The word I was looking for before was concept design. There was a concept design, and there was a change in that concept design. We also we paid for the surveying, and then when the design had a change, there was a little bit of resurveying work as well. Page 8. Town building maintenance. We've been talking about overtime throughout the year. Overtime years been above budget. Call-ins for alarm call-ins, overtime for projects, emergency call-ins for water issues that have been in the senior center, the police station, and town hall. So those are all things that would cause the overages in that line. We've been watching equipment repairs and rental. That's some HVAC concerns and the generator more or less at the police station. We've seen some overages in that area. So I'm going to keep watching that budget, but there's a possibility that it could go over in the last month. Page 9. This is one of those other areas I was talking about, is you do more development, you have more expenses in the Inland Wetland Commission. The Inland Wetland Enforcer has been paid, I believe, up through April. So there'll be more expenditures for May and June of enforcement officers' time there. Page 11, municipal agent to elderly, another area that every year we gotta keep watching and keeps going up. It seems like there is quite a bit of usage of these services by the town of the Waverly Center community, and we're over the allotted amount as of this period, and we have one more month to go. So that likely will go over. I did reach out to the director. I hadn't heard back yet on what the anticipation is for June. It's usually a challenge to know exactly what that amount would be. Those are the items that I have on the budget report for now.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Any questions for Tom on either revenue or expenditures? Just overall, we're in pretty good shape. I think revenues are already higher, and expenses, I think we'll have a good year end.
I just have one question. Do we have any balance left from the ARPA money that you know of?
Yeah, there is a small amount that we need to probably reappropriate before the next phase, the deadline that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe, or an example, the senior center project, I believe that the fan closed out lower than anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
So that would free up some monies. There had been still some remaining funds that had been unassigned yet. We're trying to piece that together to come up with a specific activity that will use it well, I think is a goal of the first selectman and the team that's been monitoring that. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have to allocate by the end of the calendar year. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. So next up is item 8, which is a resolution. It's in your packet. It's the green paper, and this is resolution supplemental appropriation for transfer out capital non-recurring town and increase to estimated interest income and property taxes for prior year for road improvements. So I'll invite our Public Works Director, Ryan O'Halpin, to come up to explain what we're doing here. But basically, I know road reconstruction is a very hot topic in town. We do the best we can to keep our costs in check via chip sealing, but that chip sealing can only go for so long and so many applications before you do need to reclaim the road and then mill and then pave as well. And so you're seeing some roads in town, such as High Street, where they are a little more bumpier than maybe they should be. And so Ryan, myself, and Tom have been working on a plan that would allow for road improvements to several roads in town. So do you want to talk about the roads and
Sure.
plan?
So, as you stated, the main project we're trying to get done this year is High Street from Route 66 all the way up to the high school. The water line has been replaced on that end, and the sewer line, we don't anticipate any need to expand the system going down that way. There is a drainage project happening in the next month to update all the catch basins on that road, all the off-road structures that are on there, to alleviate any drainage concerns after repaving. That's the last thing we want, is to repave the road and then find out, oh, we got to put in catch basins. So getting this done beforehand will be necessary to make sure the road stays in good shape for a long time after this project. Outside of High Street, there's Perry Ave that's been affected by Brainerd Place. That's going to also need to be fully reclaimed, as High Street will be. Perry got ripped apart even prior to the Brainerd Place project, had multiple water main breaks on that road, so it was already looking pretty bad. And then we went and put a water main on the resident side of the road there, so the road is riding pretty bad. Obviously, there's only 7 residents on that road, 7 houses, I should say, more residents than that, but they deserve, a good rideable road. Obviously, they've been dealing with the construction across the street, and Brainerd has a plan to curb their side, and there's going to be an emergency entrance on the Brainerd side of Perry. So it'll be good to get this done this year. That way, as Brainerd is coming together, they can curb that and everything will come together nicely. Brand new road, and hopefully Brainerd looking good later this year as well. And then a couple of miscellaneous roads. We had a water main break on Dogwood Drive earlier in the year, which caused undermining on Spring Street. So Spring Street, for 400 feet going down the hill towards East Main from Dogwood, is going to need to be full depth reclaimed again. It's a small section, but it got undermined pretty good. Just water flowing downhill stayed under the road, since there was no cracks in the road, no way for the water to come up. It just undermined it, and I tried doing some scans back in December to find where the voids were and possibly fill it with flow fill before everything started settling. And the guys that came out to scan the roadway, basically the voids were everywhere. The water, and if you rode the road right now, you could see the voids went everywhere. The water basically dispersed out in every direction. I was hoping it stayed in a nice trench. Maybe we could fill the trench, but that didn't happen. And so that'll need to get done along with a water main project. I'm hoping to have the town guys complete in the next month or so. And then Dogwood Drive would be on the list to mill and pave as well. And then if funds allow, finish the end of Freestone up to High Street. I know the resident came in and talked about Freestone Ave extension, but we did just chip seal over there. We did not plan on doing that section. I'll keep that in mind. We need to see, you know, get that list done, I think is gonna be priority. You guys have any other?
How, Dogwood Drive, that water line, how many feet is it?
That's
You're gonna replace?
380 feet. Dogwood itself is 400 total, but we came in off a Hilltop and we
Right.
also came in off of Spring Street, little ways.
When do you plan on putting that main in?
As soon as I could get the guys, they still have to finish patching potholes from the winter, so I'm gonna make that a priority still. Prepping the roads for chip seal took a lot of their time over the last month. So we're gonna get back to patching potholes. Once we're in good shape there, I'll see if I could get a crew on Dogwood, hopefully July.
The drainage on High Street, is that a contractor job or a public works job?
Contractor.
High Street with Valley View, if it gets approved over the election time, if they do go with the bigger school with the capacity of the sewer lines and water lines, would that have to be changed, or is it equal
No,
size?
so I did look into that, so that's why I was thinking we'd go all the way to the high school, because the 8-inch line will be sufficient. You could take 500,000 gallons a day down an 8-inch line, so it should be sufficient for the high school and any expansion at Valley View. The water line over there, if they needed to expand on the water line and put a bigger water line in, is already off the side of the road, on the other side of the sidewalk right there. So they could just tap in right there. And then, yeah, if they need to do widening on the road there, obviously it's just gonna need to be part of the budget for the school. And I think if they end up redoing a small section, you know, from Hall Hill to Valley View, I don't know if it's the end of the world, because they could kind of saw cut and just widen up right off of. I don't think it would be too much of a waste.
And the setbacks there, we have plenty of room to do what we need to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a state road, so instead of a normal town road has a 50-foot width with the road usually centered. You know, sometimes it's skewed off to one side or another. But High Street, since it was a state road, it's just like Main Street where we have a 100-foot width. So we have an extra 25 feet on each side of the road, which allowed the water main to go in on the other side of the sidewalk, where on a town road, the sidewalk is usually right up against the end of the town property.
Any other questions for Ryan on this? So there's a resolution in front of you. We do need to schedule a public hearing and a special town meeting for this. Would anyone like to read the resolution?
I'll move it, because actually I read the draft a little bit earlier, and Ryan knows this. I found a few typos, so
Okay.
while I'm reading it, I'll make the
Perfect, thank
corrections.
you.
And when I get to the point where the corrections are, I'll make them so everybody sees it. Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, dated June 5th, 2024. Supplemental appropriation for transfer out, cap non-rec town, and increase to estimated interest income and property taxes prior year. Whereas the Town of Portland is attempting to make road improvements to some town roads that may include, but not limited to, a part of High Street, Perry Avenue, Dogwood Drive, and a portion of Spring Street. And in this paragraph, there are two corrections, I'll note them. Whereas the town does not have funds in place, insert the word to, make the needed, and it said payment improvements. I believe that was supposed to be pavement
That is
improvements.
correct.
As the cost estimates exceeded the funds that are available in the Town Aid Road Grant Fund, a municipal grant in aid program for approximately $360,000. And whereas revenues in line item 01-000-000-00401, investment income, currently exceeds the adjusted budget by at least approximately $250,000. And whereas revenues in line item number 01-000-000-00011, prop taxes prior year, exceeds the original budget estimate due to tax sale proceedings and strong prior year tax collection efforts, the estimated revenues can be increased by the additional $110,000 needed for the road construction projects. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves a supplemental appropriation in line item number 01-093-000-90012, transfer out cap non-rec town in the amount of $360,000. And be it further resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves funding for the supplemental appropriation in line item number 01-093-000-90012, transfer out cap non-rec town through an increase in estimated revenue to line item number 01-000-000-00401, investment income of $250,000, and an increase in estimated revenue to line item number 01-000-000-00011, prop taxes prior year of $110,000. And be it further resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves an increase in estimated revenues number 08-141-000-00501, transfers in general fund town of $360,000, and an increase in supplemental appropriation to expenditure line item number 08-141-000-89090, Public Works Highway Division Vehicle Maintenance Road Construction Drainage.
I'll second it.
Oh, there's no need to second, we're just reading
Okay.
the resolution, but I will
Okay.
need.
Oh, I thought you were moving it, sorry.
No, so we need to have a public hearing on this, so I will entertain a motion to set a public hearing date on the resolution for June 26th at 6:50 PM.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you both. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. And now I'll entertain a motion to set a special town meeting date, also for June 26th at 6:55 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you both. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. So thank you all, and thank you to Ryan. Ryan's been working really hard to put this together, as well as Tom for coming up with a terrific way that we can fund this. So I want to thank you both for all this.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Brian.
Great. So with that, we'll move on to item 9, which is a resolution recommending an appropriation and bond authorization for the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K to grade 5 school, which will require setting a public hearing date which would be June 18th at 6 PM. And then there will be a special Board of Selectmen meeting on June 18th at 7:30 PM. And I'm going to go over what all of this entails, because as you recall, last month, we had a joint meeting with the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen, and the consensus from both boards was that we would move forward towards a question on the November ballot, which would coincide with the national presidential election. I know a great deal of work has gone into the plan, and in order to hit that November deadline, the application to the state needs to be submitted by June 30th. And in order for that to happen, public hearings have to happen. So if the board wants to move this to a question on the November ballot, then we would need to have a public hearing, which would be held on June 18th, as I mentioned. Following that same evening would be a special Board of Selectmen meeting. At that Board of Selectmen meeting, we would then send the question to a special town meeting. That meeting would be held on June 26th. And at that meeting, at that special town meeting on June 26th, there would not be a vote, but we would then adjourn that meeting to the November election, which would be the referendum. So if that makes sense, it's a complicated process in order to follow all the rules to make sure that we do receive, if we move forward with this, the reimbursement that we would so desperately need from the state of Connecticut. So I'm going to read, unless somebody else would like to read the resolution, but we're not acting on the resolution now. We will be acting on a public hearing. Does anyone want to read it? I guess I will.
No one volunteered.
All right, I'll read it. Town of Portland, Connecticut, Board of Selectmen, June 5th, 2024. Resolution recommending an appropriation and bond authorization for the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K to grade 5 school. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the Town of Portland, the town, appropriate $68 million for costs related to the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K to grade 5 school, or the project. The appropriation may be expended for site improvements, design, construction, renovation, and installation costs, engineering and professional fees, inspection, evaluation, and surveying costs, material, equipment, furniture, purchase costs, legal fees, financing costs, interest expense on temporary borrowings, and other costs related to the project. The appropriation shall include any federal, state, or other grants and aid received for the project. The Board of Selectmen or a building committee, if established, is authorized to determine the particulars of the project. The Board of Selectmen may reduce or modify the scope of the project, and the entire appropriation may be expended on the project as so reduced or modified. Further resolved that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the town finance the appropriation by issuing the town's bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $68 million, or so much thereof as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project. Further resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby refers the project to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval in accordance with the Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-24. So that is the resolution. It is not before you this evening, but we would need to have a public hearing on this for 6 o'clock on June 18th.
6:30.
No, the public hearing is
What's
6
public?
o'clock.
I was gonna say 6 o'clock. I
It's
think
6
there's gonna
o'clock.
be a lot of conversation.
So,
So I have a question. By setting the public hearing, does that mean we are going to move this project towards the referendum?
it is one step, but it's not the final step. So we could move to a public hearing, and, but we are very far down a road already towards a November question.
So if we don't move it to a public hearing, then it doesn't go to resolution, to referendum.
We would have to have a public hearing in order to have a bond referendum question on the ballot, yes.
Okay.
We discussed before, are there going to be any other questions on the referendum?
I do not believe there will be any other questions on that.
So we won't have, should we do the high school, middle school funding at the same time?
I don't know how we would do that. To be honest, this is, we're talking about a large sum here. I don't know if we want.
Well,
to put
from
it
day
in.
one, it's always been, let's be transparent with this. and John even brought it up at our last meeting, it's, we have that hanging over our heads. It's been since day one, since we.
I don't want someone to come to us after a referendum and say, I didn't know about the $12 million needed at the high school, middle school. I didn't know, you know, I mean, it wouldn't be on the referendum, but what our water cost is gonna be if we need to do sewer plant costs. But for schools, I think the question should be on there, should we bond those repairs at the same time?
I just don't know, but because it's so complicated with bond counsel in order to get the reimbursement on that, I just don't know how we would make the June 30th deadline. I mean, the approach has been to coincide the referendum question with the presidential election to make sure that as many residents have the opportunity to vote on it as possible. And although I do agree, we definitely need to address the additional work at the secondary schools that was identified in the sightlines report. I don't know if, we didn't talk about it at the joint meeting. We haven't spoken about it for a while, so, I mean.
Well, no, we did talk about it. It was brought up at the joint meeting by John. It was brought up that we have to be transparent, that people have to know there's another 12 million or 10 to 12 million dollars that we're gonna be going for in the near future. So we're looking at 68 million, then another 12 million, then where are we? I mean, that's gotta be clarified. I understand the timelines. Alls I heard was timeline. I also heard on this board, it has to be right, and it has to be transparent. And
Yeah.
right now, it's not transparent.
I don't know about, I mean, every step of the way it's
Well,
been
we're trying,
transparent.
I understand that, Ryan, but we're trying to get people out because it's a presidential election, and that is when we get the majority of the people to vote. And there can be people, we all know that, who won't know a thing about this till they get there. And we know they'll complain. That's a given. It always
And the
happens.
secondary schools will be an even bigger shocker for us to say in a year and a half, 2 years later, hey, we just got through building a new school, now we need, at that time, now it's 15 or 18 million
Right.
on top of the hill.
I guess, okay, I mean, I thought there was a consensus that we were gonna move to a question at the last
Well-
meeting. If the
well-
board doesn't wanna move, I
Well,
mean, this is.
I don't know where we're losing this that we talked about. We talked about this for a long time about the additional money.
So you want more than a 68?
No,
million?
I want it, we had it, the way it was talked to was we were gonna be transparent about it with a second question that people knew going in there, hey, 68 million, you vote on this, but just wait, we got more in 3 years, it's gonna be up to 12 to 15.
No.
When I brought up the question at the meeting, my concern, and it's still a significant concern for me, is that we have people, we're gonna ask them to dig deep and spend for the school project. And my fear is that there are gonna be people that are gonna say, I gave what I was gonna give you for this elementary school project. And then when the time comes that we need more money to do the upgrades and the repairs to the secondary school, they're gonna say, no. But the discussion we're having right now, I'm also fearful that if you put, because one way or the other, we have to do repairs to the secondary school too, or we're gonna end up with another Valley View.
Yeah.
But if we put this on as, like it was in the survey, because there were, what, 25% of the people, I believe was the number, that said they would pay for this project, but they wouldn't pay for the secondary school repairs. So if we ask it in two questions, we may just be putting ourselves in a deeper hole. Because you're gonna have people say, yeah, build a school, but don't fix the high school.
But what are we gonna do, John? We have this money, these repairs hanging over our head, they're not going away.
No, I agree with you.
So we're looking at 68 million, which I still think is, the number's way off.
And that's just the base price, that's not with interest from the 30 years of paying it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
deeper I go down this rabbit hole, the more I do not like it.
So if I could, so I hear what you're saying. I understand that. I think the point, though, isn't to make sure that the residents of Portland know that there's issues at the high school, perhaps there's money that we have to spend. I don't think it should be two questions, though. I think one question on the ballot with this, that the school system and those folks that have worked on it for a while have put together. But I think you're right about communicating the information and being transparent that this is what they're voting on. But it's our job to communicate that out there. It's Ryan's job, it's all of our jobs to communicate the other potential costs.
Right.
If that's your point, I agree with you 100%, because we have to get that word out, so that way they don't come to us the day after and say, well, now you're telling me about $10 more million. So if they understand that, you feel comfortable with it, I would imagine. If they understand.
I don't
there's-
feel comfortable with this number off the bat, to be
No,
honest
no,
with
no,
you,
but
Mike.
take that number off, but just with that concern, you want to make sure that the people in town that are watching and that are going to vote on this understand the additional costs.
We
Outside
have
of
to.
this.
We
No,
have to.
No, I agree, I'm agreeing with you. So I think the best way to get that out is to communicate that through our board and educate and the public hearings and get that information out, answer questions. Have the folks that put it together maybe answer the questions about the costs, the ones that are looking at it. So I think that's where we do need to be more transparent. So I'm agreeing with you on that.
I mean, the only thing I like about sending this to referendum how it is after the survey, the majority of people said that this is what they wanted. And everyone should get their say, yes or no. And we know at the election, it's gonna be 96, 98% turnout. So we're gonna get all of the voters to say yes or no to it.
That was the intention always, to get
Yeah.
as many voters as possible.
That's, yeah, exactly, that was the whole point.
I just wanna
I
make sure
understand.
they know what other expenses
Right.
are
I agree. That's-
Yeah,
lurking around the
because-
corner.
And I agree with you.
Not to think like this is
We
the
don't
only
have
thing we're gonna
100
say.
people, let me tell you, we don't have 100 people right now watching our meeting.
No, of course not.
Right?
Right.
So you come up with a really good plan, Michael, to get this word out.
Well, we all have to do that.
Well, I
We all
think,
have to
understand
understand
that.
100%.
What Mike says is exactly, I said that to Jim earlier today. We were talking about the same thing. The Board of Education's responsibility is the education of our kids and the facilities. They have to focus on that, and they have to put it forward to us. That's the rule. It's our responsibility, and I said, you know what, I'm a Democrat, but once elected, I represent everybody in this town.
That's right.
I'm not exactly sold on this project, to be honest with you. You know, when I looked at the increased cost, and I have an 86-year-old mother who owns her own home, and there's a lot of elderly folks in this town whose kids have, like me, they've grown up and moved out, and they have these homes that are probably gonna tack on some taxes. But, that being said, I believe it is incumbent upon this board, and we have to quote Mike, we have to put this forward to the taxpayers. I mean, it's our responsibility, and we've said this numerous times about transparency. We spent a lot of money, the Board of Ed and the town has spent a lot of money on studies. We spent a lot of money on a survey, and I think this, and we pushed like hell to get this thing to the presidential election day, so we have the people at the polls to vote for it. What I do think is the responsibility of this board, and we have some time to figure it out, but between now and the end of the summer, I think we have to put forward some kind of primer, a document, and we make it available on the town's website and wherever else we can. We have to explain to folks what the costs are, not only for this, but everything else we've got on our plate. We know we're trying to save money and do good for the water residents of this town by drilling a well.
Mary Pont said to you, Liz Tripp and four
Hi,
others.
Mary.
Good evening, Portland Lions. Jim Tripp is asking.
He did that on purpose.
I did that on purpose.
Did you guys all hear that?
Yeah.
Mary's asking
Yeah,
for
Mary's
something.
asking.
Do you need to get that?
We have a lot of expenditures, whether it's water, it's the sewer plant, it's, you know, we've heard mentioned to us the possibility down the road we may need another fire truck apparatus that can reach the top of the new structures that we're bringing to town. There are a lot of things that people they need to know what we have currently bonded, and they need to understand when those bonds come off, what we're gonna be talking about for taxes. And I think that is our responsibility. I think it's important that we put this question to the people, but I think we, as the Board of Selectmen, need to make sure, and you know, I've been saying it all along, it's all about educate, educate, educate. People have to feel comfortable that we're telling them the way it is, and this is what the possibilities are. That is where that information about the secondary schools could be. But that's just my thought, and it's been a concern of mine. But I think it's important that everybody that goes to the polls is educated, and they're making an educated vote.
I want to add one more thing, too. That was very well said. This is a big issue, and we've talked about this before. This is going to be the most expensive project the town's done ever, right? This is going to be a generational type event we're doing now that will change the nature of the school system and perhaps the town going forward. So it's a huge responsibility.
It's twice as much as the high school, middle school was.
Right, a huge amount of money. And it is a big responsibility, and every number makes a difference, and how we're going to do it makes a difference. And it's incumbent upon us, as John has said, and as you've said too, Sean, to everyone, is we need to know all the numbers. We need to be able to know them inside out and explain it, because we're going to have to either advocate for this if we feel strong about it, as many of us do, but also gentlemen like Ben and others in town that maybe are against it, they have an opportunity over the next couple of months to advocate their position, right? That's how this works, you know, and we've got a couple months until then, so everyone gets to have their say, everyone gets to put in their point of view, but it has to be based on accurate information, and as long as we're putting out correct information and correcting information that may not be correct or misunderstandings from people out there, then I think we've done the best we can, and at the end of the day, I can sleep well with that.
And I think we're sitting here, I'm not here to make the decision for any resident in town. I'm here to give my opinion on what I think is best. If I think that this is not a good plan, but I would still have to send it to referendum so everyone gets their say. I would not sit here and say, no, I won't let the people vote on this. If they vote on it and shoot it down, great, now we move on and find what we're gonna do. If they approve it, we move forward. But I can't say, I'm speaking for everyone, no, we're not doing this.
I agree.
I don't like it, I'll sit here and tell everyone, I don't like it.
I don't like it
But
either.
I can't, I don't wanna stop it from going to referendum and have the residents say yes or no.
But
Well, I think
I'd like to go back, because there were discussions at this table about how we could get a second question on there about the additional money.
Yes.
And I don't disagree with you, Sean, my only question is, if the answer to that second question is no, then what do we do?
It's capital.
It's
Capital has to pay for
It's
the
capital.
improvements.
Right. I understand what you're saying with the town website
Because
and
if
everything,
it
but-
goes to bond it, at least or the question's out there, at least they know it's there. You know, we've said, how many years are we into this 10-year plan already? What are we, 3 years in?
Well, so when
When was sightlines?
It started before we got office, elected the first time, when they got the sightlines before. Susan?
So, I mean, I know
Well-
you want a second question, but it's just not feasible at this point in time. I know we talked about it.
Why would a
but-
second question affect this?
Why would a second question affect it?
Because we have not done because the number, so just to explain, this option that we're talking about here, I know the price tag is expensive. I'm not thrilled about this price tag. You do have to remember that of all the options that the Facilities Study Committee looked at, this was the cheapest option. So any of the other iterations, aside from a capital improvement plan, which we could do, which we did a survey to the town, and we asked if the town wanted to do a capital improvement plan. And they did not want to do that. That's how we ended up here. And so what was a $27 million project went to the town when the architects first gave us their projections, somehow became a $44 million project to the town. I'm not thrilled about the numbers, but that's the facts. That's what happened. So in good conscience, I can't put more than what's on already on a ballot. We can't do the same. I don't think we would want that question to pass.
And so this is still just an estimate, that after the building is designed, it could be more.
No, because we can't spend
So,
more.
wait, we cannot spend more, but also, it also has contingency as well. That's why the higher cost is because of the contingency that's factored in.
So,
I mean,
I took all the information we got from Board of Ed, from Fryer Architects, and I sent it out to an estimator who worked on it for, between our last meeting, joint meeting, and now. And unfortunately, I didn't get the information back until today. And he shows where, yeah, they're close on some of their stuff, and other stuff, they're, actually, they're charging double for certain things. This estimator works for, was it Downs? He works with Downs. He works with a lot of very successful commercial companies. He's not just an estimator, he's actually an actuary. So as I'm going through this, and he's looking at comparing their $716 a square foot, which when I asked the gentleman from Fryer, I said, what do you figure commercial square foot, between 6 and 7? And he said, oh, no, way more. Well, he's coming in because he found a 5% discrepancy, so he's coming in and he figures about 620, using your plan. The thing that scares me with that plan is I've never seen this town take a conceptual drawing and get a building committee that came and made sense and gave the town a quality project without going overboard and not using up every penny of what was allocated by the referendum. And I've seen a lot of projects in this town happen. I watched Company 2 Firehouse the same way. I watched the project at the high school, middle school, which was supposed to have a second phase to do some work at the biz, but they had to spend all the money up there. So this is what scares me, is our track record. I understand I don't speak for the town, but we're going 30 years on a project where we, as Ben said, and all of us on the board have said before, that 20 years is the track record of any building that we need to put extensive repairs in. Now I'm done.
So
You know
all
how
we're
I feel.
doing, just for the record, is setting a public hearing date. That's it. I mean, but at the last meeting, this board said we wanted to move the question to referendum. In order to do that, we have to hold a public hearing to do that. So that's what we're doing. As far as, I don't know if, Dr. Britton, do you have anything to say on as far as the cost estimates from the architecture firm? I do know that they were vetted by not just Downs, but also, what's the other one I'm thinking of? Gilbane as well. So
And
it
this
wasn't-
gentleman, I'll send it to you,
But
he works for Downs.
So let me just reset a couple of things. Part of what, I hear you about the high school, I want to address that too. Again, I don't know, and Ryan, what the town charter or bylaws might be about when you could set questions for the November referendum, or in December or January or any other time, right? You could certainly set a second question for the November election and make that decision in August. You can make that decision in September. You can make that decision in November next year. Right, but what Ryan has put forward to you now about the secondary school we need now because the deadline we're working under, and Stephanie and I have already started working, is June 30th. Is that we need this approved now so that we have everything we need from the Board of Education. We now need these resolutions and these meetings notarized and loaded by June 30th, so we can click submit on June 29th, because June 30th is a Sunday. We've watched this very closely, so that we are then on the queue in the Department of Administrative Services. They know we're coming. Now, interestingly enough, the day we hit that submission on June 30th, which it would be my recommendation is just focus on this. High school, if you want to do a second question, I'm all for it, because you're right, that is work that needs to be done, but there's no deadline there. The deadline is for this June 30th. The very next day, interestingly enough, on June 1st, Stephanie and I are going to be watching very closely when the state publishes our Anglic rating percent reimbursement. That's the day we're going to know, are we 47%, are we 45%, are we 52%? What's the net grand list in Portland? We don't know that yet. So we don't even know right now what our reimbursement rate would be. Hopefully we'll be in a very good mood, because that will be at 50%. Also, when we submit our grant application, we know there are escalators. We're entitled to, I think, up to 4 or 5% more because of our relationship with Open Choice. We're entitled to some percentage reimbursement for the portions of the building that would be for our pre-K, because it's early childhood education. We could be up in the mid-50% reimbursement. Again, some of this is not known. All of this, though, I promise you, will be known before the federal election in November. All we're trying to accomplish now, through these resolutions, through moving it to the public hearing, getting it to the town meeting, is clearing the path for Stephanie and I to have everything we need notarized and resolved and submitted by June 30th. That's not the end of the game. That's like the end of the beginning. We have a lot of work to do this summer now, when we get feedback from the Department of Administrative Services, when we learn what our percent reimbursement is, when we start looking at Friars, who knows what that inflation could do, but there are lots of things that have to be worked out. All we're trying to do now is to your point, set us up with everything we need to get in the queue and be on the bonding agenda with the state, and they know we're coming. We've been working very closely with them, and then we'll be looking at all of how these things unravel throughout the summer and fall, so that by the time we get to November, to your point, we will clearly communicate to everybody in specific terms what our reimbursement rate is. If it's $68 million and we're at 52% reimbursement, great. Even then, when that happens, like, let's say all of this lines up, we have the federal election, some people are happy the next day, some people are not, based on who our president is and whether this passes or not. But let's say it passes and we move forward then. You're going to form a building committee, you're going to hire an architect, you're going to have a clerk of the works, and absolutely you're going to go out to bid, right? I mean, these are estimates that we need to get the state aware of and start the process forward. But without question, Tom will tell you and Stephanie will tell you, we'll bid this, we'll get an OPM, we'll get an architect, we will make sure that as we move forward, we're spending money in the wisest possible way. This isn't a commitment to that amount. Hopefully it's well under that, and if you have construction companies that respond to the bids that we put out at the $632 as opposed to the $730 square foot, they win the bid. Let's go.
What I'm saying, Charles, is I asked the guy specific questions he did not answer. Okay?
You mean Mike Strong?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the gentleman that is on our land and building usage, is that what it's called? Building land usage committee?
Land and building.
Land and building usage committee. I was talking to him and I asked him, could you look this over for me so I can get some idea, because there were some of the numbers that were confusing. And he had it and he went through it and looked over all their numbers. I understand when somebody says, we're gonna give you a high number, okay? I build houses, I do a lot of work that way, and if I put in something, I'll say, let's add 20% off this number for it. What I don't like is getting a number that's presented to us by someone that I assume was bid on to represent the town, correct? Fryer, did we?
They bid, for
right,
sure.
And we hired
We
them,
interviewed
right?
several
Right.
architects, yeah.
And looking at some of the numbers and being totally confused with them, and then find out that being made aware of, and I sent Ryan email and I'll send it to you with all the notes. Maybe it's just a little, I'm feeling a little bitter
Wait, I think-
because,
Sure, can we just jump
let me
over?
finish.
Yep.
I don't want to be interrupted. But when we talk, it's always we're looking at the highest percentage of payback. Percentage of what we're gonna get from the state. You're saying 50% maybe with everything we can get, right?
Right.
What's the lowest, 40,
We use 45,
45?
which is
It's
lower
gonna
than
go-
we've ever been.
It's the lowest we've ever been.
It's low, we're at 47 right now. This year, we're at 47. Last year, we were at 52. We used 45, because to your point, I think what Mike was saying to, and what I'm saying to, is we were being super conservative, right? Even when you designed the survey, the numbers you went out with were high, right? We don't ever want to be accused of selling anybody an idea that is way under what it costs.
That I
We're
agree
up
with.
there. Like that 68 million is above the 66 million that is actually in the numbers reviewed by Gilbane, Downs, and Frye. At 68, we're above that. You know, if Mike were standing here, he would be.
That's my point. We're above that.
Yeah.
We're at 68 million. And that's what we're putting to a question, is $68 million. And everybody's ignoring the 12 million.
Can I just say one thing on the 12 million? Also, we asked that in the survey, and we all talked about how it's important that we have to do something and we need to get a yes vote. And what we saw in the survey was that people were less likely to support it, and we may end up with a failed referendum question. So I just, I mean, that was
All right,
another
so-
aspect,
so
that we
that's
did
fine.
talk about that.
That's fine, that's fine. It's not, that number doesn't have to come out. We'll try to put it out. We'll try to put it out there, and then maybe we should start putting money in capital for that. Because obviously, that's the only way it's gonna happen.
Well, that was the recommendation from the Facilities Study Committee, was to do exactly that. Now, I don't know, I don't know if that would happen. I think that there's ways to address the sightlines report that were identified. And I think there's ways that we can get creative, such as the HVAC grants that we can apply for, that will help to reduce that number. We have to really dig deep at that. I don't know if it's really 12 million. And so that's what, but we need to do the due diligence to identify those needs, and so we can address them in a fiscally responsible way. But we just can't do both right now, and because
Well,
if we were gonna do
I
that, we
understand
should have
that.
done.
I understand that. But we have to put this question forward. I understand that's what the people want. But we have to figure out next budget season what we're gonna do with those schools. Whether it's putting money in capital and making sure it's there. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. Like Bobby said, how many years are we into a 10-year plan?
You're 100% right, Sean. Yeah. We have a poor track record in the town of funding capital, but, I mean, it's a balancing act. Every budget is trying to balance the needs of the town with what our residents can afford. And so they're not easy decisions. And I keep telling people, I didn't run for this office to close 2 elementary schools. That was not part of my plan. I never envisioned that I would be up here talking about this, but we've done a lot of work to get to this point. And
No,
so,
Ryan, I know we did. So let's just, someone move the question.
I'll make the question. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
say my final point.
The other mic.
You know, I agree with the money side of this. It's not pretty at all. Ben made a lot of valid points. I find it hard to tell the taxpayers they're on the hook for 30 years on this school, and then in 20 years, school starts needing more work. So I'm gonna steer away from that aspect. We just beat that to death, like whatever. The money's bad. It sucks. I get it. I'm not really I don't recommend this plan for another reason, and I'm gonna hop on the coattails of Board of Ed members Kim Marushak and Tim Lavoie, who they say this is not the best plan for the kids. And I'm aiming, why I don't want to move this is because, it's not because of the money, because the voters will vote. If they got the money, they'll pay for it. If they don't have the money, they'll vote against it. Leave that up to them. I don't want to move it because of their reasons for the kids. It's a 700 kid school all in one place. They had talked about security reasons, having all the kids in one school, having kindergartens with 5th graders. I know they're supposed to be separated, but that never really happens. They mingle. I don't like the size. I don't like the size of I don't like the duration of lunch periods going from 10:30 to 1:30. I may be wrong on these times, but it's just a little short. You're eating lunch earlier, you're eating lunch late. Gym classes, now you maybe only get one gym class a day instead of maybe multiple gym classes. And we all know we're in an obese pandemic here in the United States, so kids need to be active, they need things to do. And I feel like we're depriving them that with this school. And these are all the points that Kim and Tim had. And there's many more, but again, I know you guys want to move the question, but I'm looking at it through children's eyes. Do I think it's the best for them? I do not. I just had a kid go through K through 4. I dealt with it. She's now going to 5 through 8. It's a breather that there's now she's going to be with less kids, so I'm happy about that. But that's just my 2 cents, and that's why I am against this moving this to the. Thank you.
Did you make a motion, Mike?
I was about to make a motion. Michael wanted to talk.
I'm all good. Go
I
ahead.
like that. I want to add one more thing to what you said, Michael. All of us here have listened to the Board of Ed. We've listened to teachers. We've talked to people in town. I mean, this has been discussed, I think, more than any other issue we've had. What's making me support this, yeah, the cost is a concern, but hearing the teachers and the principals in the school system talk about the benefits of combining them in one, that has been much more positive than the possible downsides from what I've heard so
Don't
far.
you think the teachers and the administration are going to glorify this castle on the hill here?
No,
wouldn't you like the shiny new toy for
So-
Christmas? Or do you want?
so the
That's what I'm
teachers-
saying. Of course they're going to say yes. They
Well,
want this.
no, if you ask a teacher what's going to help them teach better, I'd expect them to give an honest answer, don't you?
No, not necessarily.
A box.
I don't trust anybody.
So I trust the experts in education, which are the people that teach and the people that manage that, to probably have a good thought-out answer for what makes sense for the kids. So that's where I lean toward. But I understand both concerns, though. I understand.
Isn't Kim on the
people
Board of
can-
Education? Isn't she an educator?
Yes,
And she
is.
taught
And
against it, right?
And she took, absolutely, her and Tim both did, but how about the ones that
I'm just
voted
saying,
for it?
What's that?
How about the people that were in favor of it?
I don't know what you're talking about. Who was in favor?
The ones, okay, so 2 people were against it. The other ones on the Board of Ed
Yep.
were in favor of it, so.
I understand.
You can.
But I'm
you
not
can
saying
have-
what every teacher says.
I'm not-
Is,
I
I
didn't
don't
say
really
every
believe
teacher.
what they're saying if it's the best condition for them.
I-
I think they just want
I-
they want the shiny new car. They don't want the pre-owned.
When
car.
I ask,
This
when
is
I
a
ask
great
a teacher.
conversation. I wish everyone was more vocal when we had a special joint meeting of the Board of
Oh, that's
Selectmen.
right.
I think so,
And that's
Brad.
another
So
thing,
go
right?
back and look
Next
at
time
the
you keep
list.
addressing this board as everyone was at that meeting, medical issues, I was not there.
There you go.
All right,
So
fair
you
enough.
gotta get it, I understand.
So I can
I brought
refuse
up
from
a lot.
that.
But,
Anytime you
so
say it.
yes, so maybe people are less trusting than me, but I trust the ones that are experts at their field to at least give a reasonable explanation for what they believe. So that's where I come from.
But I also think that, the point's not lost, right? There's gonna be some education that's needed. The top line number, we know there's gonna be reimbursement. We need people to understand what the offsets are gonna be, because there will be some savings that we'll get that'll be operational, that'll be year over year. I think that's important. I'll tell you, Mike, some of the issues that you talked about with lunch and Jim are questions that I raised at that meeting, right? That's one of the concerns that I've had. But I also see, bringing everything together to a consolidated primary as there's pros and cons. I also think that you've got advantages by not having, you have a much smoother transition as kids go up through the grades because they're going to be staying inside the same building. That was something we also heard. So I do think that there are some aspects about having a larger facility that I don't like, and then there are other aspects about having a unified primary, consolidated primary, that I think will benefit the students, and it's just trying to weigh those. I'll also say that I'll support this going to the public hearing. I think it's important that we get this in motion so that we have the option of getting this on the ballot and we let the public speak. I also think it's important that this gets seen and voted on by the public when we're going to get an 89 to 95% turnout. The next opportunity to do that in 2 years, would be in 2 years with the gubernatorial. And at that point, you take a look at inflation, you could be looking at a project that's another 6 to 10% higher. So I think that there are some concerns I have with waiting, and I think the public gave us some feedback, and they have a right to have their say.
And keep in mind, if the whole point of this is to let the town decide. We've been trying to, this board and the Board of Education has been trying to gauge public interest on what is the best path forward. If this fails, then we will most likely do something very similar to what Ben talked about with a capital improvements plan. And we would be very strategic in what was fixed and repaired, but the buildings would remain largely untouched. I mean, it would just be capital improvements, and we would, but that's not the direction that the town told us they wanted us to go. They want the overhead savings of the consolidation, and so we're at a point where we've been talking about this. It's not a perfect plan. There is no perfect plan. No matter what we do, there's no perfect plan. So, but we are at a point where we need to either move or figure out another option, but we gotta move. So, did you make a motion?
No, I'd like to make a motion that we set up an appointment on June 18th at 6 p.m. to discuss the appropriation and bond authorization for the renovation and expansion of Valley View Elementary School into a pre-K grade 5 school.
A public hearing.
Public hearing.
And I will second that motion.
All right. Any further discussion on the public hearing that will be held?
Yes, yes. Vigorous debate is a good thing. We need to discuss it a lot.
And so the
Going
public
forward.
is welcome, and that's the whole point of the public hearing is to have the public come and make their voice heard.
Since we have some discussion here, is the intention to have that public hearing in this room? Because my thought would be, we have to find a larger venue.
We have to
Yeah, I
have it.
think
We
we
have
do.
to have it in this room, I'm sorry.
Why?
We have to have it in this room. Because the legal notices have already gone out, and with the agenda that we don't have the option to move it because of the special town
Well, you
meeting.
said there's not a vote at the hearing, right?
There's not a vote.
So the
at
size of the room doesn't matter.
It really shouldn't.
Well,
But
if the fire
everything-
marshal's gonna turn people away, then it does matter, because they can't be. That's all I'm saying. We've been running into this.
There is online access as well, so if people wish to comment publicly, they can also attend via Zoom.
Then if we put out the announcement about the meeting, I would strongly recommend that we say that this is where the meeting is, space is limited, and we encourage people and give them the Zoom address so that they can look at it electronically.
I mean, just so you know, I mean, the public hearing at this point is to have a public hearing, but we have, I mean, we all have email after email from residents on both sides of the issue. The public has been weighing in on this.
But a public hearing
and-
is supposed to afford people an opportunity to
No,
speak.
no,
And we will have,
we will.
I would venture to say we're gonna have a number of people.
Well, we're gonna have a number of people on a number of issues, so, I mean,
Right.
we're not even halfway through the agenda, and.
Well,
and-
legal notice went out already.
What's that?
You just said a legal notice already went out.
Yeah, I mean, the legal notice needs to be submitted to the River East.
So it hasn't gone out.
It has been submitted to because they go out to print on Wednesday.
On something we didn't vote on, having this yet?
We can pull it, but it's already been submitted. Yes, I can pull it if it, and I can't make a change at this point to a legal notice. I mean, we can cancel a meeting, but we need to get that in a paper with circulation in order to hit the timeline. So that's how the legal notice process works. So we will figure out the logistics
Yeah.
of the meeting, but the meeting will be held in the buck form. And I think we can change it if needed. I'd have to get back to you on that but we also have other topics and other meetings.
I understand that. I just want to make sure that you hear the conversation we have right here.
Yeah.
And Michael, you said that this has been a very, probably the biggest topic this town has had in a long time. And I think we should afford the folks the opportunity. I just don't want to see people getting turned away.
I can think of some other big topics.
But,
All right.
yes.
All right, but we'll make sure we try to do that.
Okay, so, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on this?
No.
All right, so all those in favor of setting the public hearing date for June 18th at 6 PM?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
2 opposed. 5 yes.
Hold on, I need to know who opposed.
Sean and Mike.
Hernandez and me.
Okay. So, also, as I mentioned, there's a special Board of Selectmen meeting that evening as well. At that special Board of Selectmen meeting at 7:30 PM, one of the items on the agenda will be, there's 2 resolutions that the board would have to pass to continue the process to move to the question on the ballot. So there's plenty of time still to debate, discuss, but, I mean, this board, we already kind of, I'm not gonna beat it,
No,
that horse.
just- we can move on.
We'll move on. So, but just, I want you to know, there's that 7:30 special meeting as well. So with that, we'll move on to item 10 this evening, which is a resolution on a supplemental appropriation for 2023 to 2024, I lost it, General Fund Operating Budget, Board of Education. So this is going to require a public hearing and special town meeting as well. This is in your packet. Before we talk about it, I'm just going to read it, so, to give clarity to what we're talking about. Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, June 5th, 2024, supplemental appropriation for 2023 to 2024 General Fund Operating Budget, Board of Education. Whereas the Board of Education is experiencing overages in fiscal year 2024 in purchased services due to not being able to hire or find an internal position for speech and language services that then needed to be provided by a contractor, as well as the need for more physical therapy and occupational therapy services than were originally expected. And whereas in fiscal year 2024, the Board of Education has had additional tuition costs to private sources and tuition costs to local educational agencies in state due to unexpected outplacements. And whereas the Board of Education is incurring more transportation costs for students due to the increased and unexpected outplacements, and whereas due to the additional costs placing a significant strain on the Board of Education fiscal year 2024 budget, the Board of Education is requesting $375,000 supplemental appropriation to the 2023 to 2024 General Fund Operating Budget, Board of Education, and whereas in Education Cost Sharing Grant 01-000-000-00101 have come in higher by $48,917 than budgeted based on an adjustment by the state. And whereas an additional $326,083 would be allocated from the unassigned fund balance of the general fund to cover the remainder of the Board of Education's request. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves a supplemental appropriation to the Board of Education General Fund operating budget in the amount of $375,000 through an increase in estimated revenues to line item number 01-000-000-00101, Education Cost Sharing Grant of $48,917, and from the unassigned fund balance of the general fund of $326,083. So that's what we're talking about. Does anyone have any questions? We have Dr. Britton is here, as well as Stephanie from the Board of Education.
Could I make a request, a recommendation? As the liaison to the Board of Education, I attended the meeting last night, and Dr. Britton gave a very nice short thumbnail explanation of this. It really, as I understand it, this really involves a group of our most needy children. And I think it's important that you all hear that thumbnail explanation that he provided last night, if you don't mind, Dr. Britton.
So, last year, when we built our budget, we had anticipated 17 of our students needing outplacements. Just to remind you, an outplacement is for students who we can't provide in the least restricted environment we call it, which is our home schools. These are students who need therapeutic environments, hospitalizations. These are your neediest students in town. Those costs for tuition and to transport students to those settings and those schools and those hospitals, it's quite pricey. I mean, we have to transport them and then pay the tuition and the related services. So we had 17 students at that time. The challenges for us is always, of course, that when we build a budget in November, December, that budget needs to sustain us for 18 months, and new residents move into town. So after the budget was adopted, we had new residents. People moved into town, took residence. Some were placed by Department of Children and Family, social service agencies, and some people rented or otherwise moved into town. That number jumped from 17 to a high of 24 at one point in the year. While that may not sound like a lot for a differential of 7 students, in some cases these outplacements can run up to $100,000 a year or more if you include transportation and related services. As soon as those students take residence, we have to maintain the programming for those students that they arrive with from sending school districts. But our team, of course, starts working with those students and those families, and to the maximum extent possible, bringing some students back into our in-house programs as they grow comfortable with our schools. Through that process, we were able to reduce the outplacements, but we didn't get back to the 17. We're now at 20. So we started at 17, we went up to 24, we're now at 20. And that's actually the number that we've built next year's budget. So it's really those new residents. Those are again our neediest students in pre-K all the way up through age 22 who we provided the services for. Now Stephanie can give you the exact number, but it's close to $1 million. I will tell you that the cost for those students is way more than the $375,000 that we're asking for. It's closer to $1 million. But we saw this coming. We saw the tsunami coming on shore here. We took some big steps throughout the course of the year. We froze our budget. We stopped hiring. We limited our efforts. And we were able to chip away at that through additional revenue sources and doing everything we can. And we've got it to 375. So how did I do?
Good.
Right. So that's the big ticket item. The other two things that impacted the budget were, one, the state of Connecticut has a system called excess cost grant. This is reimbursement that we get for a percentage of students, especially when those costs get excessive. So it's called the excess cost grant. We're responsible for the first about $90,000 worth of those costs. Above that, for every dollar we spend, we receive some reimbursement from the state. In years past, that number has been as high as 82–83%. State is often changing that number based on available revenue, and you've probably heard across the state the needs of students statewide are significant this year, and those resources have been depleted at the state level. So they informed us, April, that we were only receiving 68%. So we had anticipated certainly higher than 68%. We were disappointed when we found out that revenue was being reduced, but that is the way it is. You may have heard many superintendents and boards of education are furious enough and arms about this, but it happened to us. And then the final thing that happened to us was we started last school year with 2 speech and language pathologists. These highly qualified educators provide speech and language services to our identified students. In October, one of our speech and language pathologists took a job at Yale New Haven Hospital, and she left the district. It's a shortage area. Great career opportunity for any young people out there. Become a speech and language pathologist. It's almost a guaranteed employment. You're paid really well. Come work for us. We'll hire you immediately. But that person left. We posted the position, and we were unable to find a qualified licensed speech and language pathologist. So we had to turn to a vendor called Cheshire Fit, Procare, to contract those services, which is considerably more expensive than if we had an in-house employee. Fortunately, 3 weeks ago, I hired a speech and language pathologist. We recruited and found someone. They won't start until July 1, but the difference in our budget between the contracted service from October to the end of the year was about $100,000. So we've worked hard. I'm really sorry that it happened. I'd much rather be ending the year with a surplus, but we did mitigate it as best we can. We chipped away from about a little over $1 million down to the 375 where we are now, but this is the position we're in.
I just have one question. The other night I was at a meeting and a couple of the Board of Education members were there, and we had discussed this, and they made a comment about the transportation cost for these kids is higher than, is that true, higher than transporting the whole school for pupils?
Yeah, so some of these students require specialized transportation, handicap vans, smaller buses. We use some in-house, we use M&J, we use Ambassador, but a lot of these transportation are very specialized.
What do we got to do? Are we putting this to a public hearing?
Yeah, so this, yes, so this will require a special town meeting and a public hearing. And so I have that scheduled for a public hearing date for June 18th at 6:30 PM, and then a special town meeting date of June 18th at 6:45 PM. So is there a motion?
I make a motion.
To set the public hearing date?
To set the public hearing date of June 18th at 6:30 PM.
I'll second that motion.
All right, any discussion? See none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, any abstentions?
Did Michael?
I did. Yep.
All right, and then we need a motion for the special
Make a
town.
motion to set the special town meeting on June 18th at 6:45 PM.
Second.
Any comments? All right, see none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So, motion passes unanimously, I'm assuming on that?
I'd like to make just one comment, if I could. We have a half hour from 6 o'clock to 6:30 for the folks to talk about the school system, so just make a note of that, it's only half an hour.
Well, I'm gonna go over the schedule,
Okay.
yeah. We have a lot, this is what is challenging because of the time constraints that we have to get done. And so on the 18th, right now, well, actually, we're not even done with, we have two more things to get through. So why don't I wait to get through that, and then we'll go. So we have, the next one is a resolution to recommend the authorization of a lease purchase agreement. This is the Board of Education for copiers. This is I think it's every 4 years, am I correct, Tom, that the Board of Education's contract is up?
48 months.
And does anyone want to read?
Do we need to read this?
Well, I mean, I just want the
Record?
public to know.
Do we read the whole thing or just the first page?
We can just read the first page, I think, because that explains. What's that, Tom?
First page, we find everything else is repetitive.
That's exactly correct. So, yeah,
I'll-
you could just read
I'll
the first
read
page.
Town of Portland, Connecticut Board of Selectmen, June 5th, 2024. Resolution to recommend the authorization of a lease purchase agreement and to call a special town meeting to approve the authorization. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen recommends that the Town of Portland, for the benefit of the town's Board of Education, enter into a lease purchase agreement to lease and subsequently purchase 18 photocopiers with a lease term not to exceed 48 months. The lease purchase agreement principal amount not to exceed $150,000. Annual payments under the lease purchase agreement consisting of principal and interest not to exceed $41,000 for the term of the lease, and to enter into a service contract for the photocopiers with annual payments not to exceed $25,000. Be it further resolved that the attached resolution for the lease purchase agreement, the resolution is hereby approved in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 503F of the Portland Town Charter, this subject to approval at a special town meeting to be held on June 18th, 2024, in accordance with the attached legal notice of special town meeting, which is also hereby approved.
All right, so that's what we're talking about. Does the board have any questions on this? It's pretty straightforward.
No, they got a photocopy stuff, so.
So then, I'll entertain a motion to set a special town meeting
Make
date
a
of
motion,
June 18th.
Set a special town meeting for June 18th at 7 PM.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is a resolution on federal and state grants for Job's Pond. And so I guess I will read this just so you know what we're talking about. This is in order for us to receive the federal and state funds and enter into a grant agreement. I need to be authorized to do that, and we'll need to have a special town meeting. So this is a resolution of the Board of Selectmen, June 5th, 2024, federal and state grants, Job's Pond. Whereas the town of Portland has insufficient funding or other resources available to provide adequate relief from applicable hazards and have thereby requested federal assistance from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, under the provisions of Section 216 of the Flood Control Act of 1950, Public Law 81-516, or Section 403 of the Agriculture Credit Act of 1978, Public Law 94-334, to restore damages sustained in Middlesex County by ongoing excessive rainwater flooding properties along Job's Pond, specifically Job's Gate 1, Job's Gate 2, and 3 on April 4th, 2024. And whereas the work is needed to safeguard lives and property from an imminent hazard of flooding basements, damaging home mechanical systems such as heating furnaces, hot water tanks, plumbing, and septic tanks. Immediate relief would require removal of water from the pond, and whereas the project objective is the dewatering of Job's Pond and pipeline construction in an effort to relieve flooding, and whereas the NRCS has provided technical and financial assistance to the town of Portland for the project for implementation of recovery measures that, if left undone, pose a risk to life and/or property, and whereas NRCS will pay up to 75% of the eligible construction costs, and the sponsor, the town, is required to contribute a 25% match. And whereas the town anticipates to receive a grant from the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to cover the 25% match. And whereas the total estimated project budget is $760,000, of which the federal share is $572,500, and the non-federal State of Connecticut share is $187,500. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes Ryan J. Curley for Selectmen to execute and file such application with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service under the authority of the Emergency Watershed Protection to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Portland. And be it further resolved, the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman, to execute and file such application with the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Portland. So, is there a motion?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
To
set a special town meeting on June 18th at 7:15 PM.
Okay, Mike seconded that. Any discussion?
I did.
I just have one question that I've been asked. Is their plans, I know this, we don't own any of that property, the town doesn't, but with this federal money, is there plans for them to come up with some type of relief system so this doesn't happen again?
Good point.
No. This
Okay.
is only a temporary fix. This is not a permanent fix. The NRCS has talked about a permanent fix. We do have options for a permanent fix. That's not the immediate concern is this current flooding crisis. When that's resolved, we can look at a more permanent solution. The trouble with the permanent solution is going to come down to funding, as this. We, right now, are receiving 75% of the funds from the federal government and 25% from the state. So we'll have to look at solutions, but if we get another grant from NRCS, it would only cover 75% of the cost. And so I don't know where that 25% would come from but we will explore that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so any other discussion for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Okay, so now that we've done that, I just want to point out our meeting schedule for June 18th. Now, I do understand, I think Mike and John have a good point on the public hearing, but we'll have to explore that. Let me think about it, because right now, this is our schedule. So 6 p.m. on June 18th, we have a public hearing on the school bonding referendum. At 6:30, we have a public hearing on the Board of Education supplemental appropriation. At 6:45 p.m., we have a special town meeting on the Board of Education supplemental appropriation. At 7 p.m., we have a special town meeting on the Board of Education copier lease. At 7:15 p.m., we have a special town meeting on Job's Pond. And then at 7:30 p.m., we have a special Board of Selectmen meeting where we will most likely be discussing the 2 school resolutions that would need to be passed at that meeting to move to a question. We would be talking potentially about the water project funding, which we'll be talking about a little later. And we could very well be talking about the Brainerd Place tax agreement. And then I'm hopeful we'll be talking about a contractor for the work at Job's Pond as well after that meeting. So provided the special town meeting passes. So I just wanted to put everything on your radar. We have a very, very busy month of June. That's just the 18th. We also have the 26th where we have a number of meetings as well. On the 26th, we have a 6:30 p.m. special town meeting on school bonding. We have a 6:50 p.m. public hearing on the road funding that we talked about. We have a 6:55 p.m. special town meeting on the road funding as well, and then a 7 p.m. Board of Selectmen meeting. So that's our June. It's a fun month. So,
Gee, thanks.
Is everybody available on June 18th?
No.
All right.
That's not.
With that, there's a resolution in your packets with, as I'm sure you all saw, the Planning and Zoning Commission has turned down the application for a text amendment change in the regulations. So the current tax agreement is in default, and I do need to notice the developer that we are in default of the
Do we
agreement.
need to read this?
I'd appreciate if you would move the resolution.
I'll move the resolution. Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, June 5th, 2024. Resolution authorizing the first selectman to send notice of default of fixed assessment agreement. Be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes Ryan J. Curley, first selectman, to send a notice of default to BRT DeMarco PTP LLC pursuant to the Second Amendment to amend and restated agreement to fix assessment on real property dated March 23rd, 2022. Originally approved March 15th, 2017, and amended on October 28th, 2021. Between the Town of Portland and BRT DeMarco PTP LLC, the agreement. The notice of default will be sent in accordance with the Section 22A of the agreement.
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion on this?
No.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All right. Next up is appointments to boards and commissions. I do want to report some very sad news. Peter Castelli passed away unexpectedly, and Peter was a long-standing member of the Board of Assessment Appeals. And he was everybody who, anybody who knew him would tell you what a great guy he was. He will be deeply missed, and I'm very sorry for his wife, Sandy, and we're definitely keeping her in our thoughts. So there is a vacancy on that, the Board of Assessment Appeals, and then Deborah Calavez has resigned from the Youth Services Advisory Board as of May 21st. And so there's a vacancy as well. Are there any appointments?
We don't have any.
Appointments?
Nothing this evening, no?
Okay. So with that, we'll move on to refunds of excess payments.
I'll make a motion for refund of excess payment, Enterprise FM Trust, $434.80, $119.45, and $127.73.
And I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All right, under status reports, I want to talk with you about the water, their search for water. I know at the last meeting, Ryan gave a presentation and Rich from GZA talked about water and what we need to do in order to become water independent. And as you know, we're up against the clock with MDC, where our contract is up January of 2026. So really, they want to negotiate this summer, and if we really need to have an established well in place this summer, later this summer, to do pump testing in the dry season in order to have a shot at, in order to get permitted within the timeline window that we need. In order for that to happen, it's estimated that the town would need to have approximately $1.2 million for that well. I asked the board if you were interested in exploring options with that. You told me that you wanted me to explore some options. I have an option that it's a theoretical option that we can talk about. It's not a good option, but again, we're finding out there's not always a good option, but if we want this well to happen, and I think we all do, we would need to get the well in place this summer. And so in order to do that, we would be talking about a potential bond of a loan of under, Tom, do you want to talk? A note? Yeah, a note of under $500,000, somewhere around in the 400s. Which would then be charged, paid back through the ratepayers, the water users themselves, over probably a 10-year period, and that would fund a portion of that. Then the remaining funds would have to come from the town fund balance in order for us to have the funds available in a timely manner. Now, again, all of this would be subject to another special town meeting and a public hearing and all that. And so that's the best we have. Ryan's here, he'll tell you, we've turned every stone over trying to find funding. We're really hoping that we might get some assistance from the bond commission on this, but we did not. And so if we are to hit the timelines, this is really the only option that we have. So I don't know what the board thinks of that. If you want Tom and myself and Ryan to continue exploring this and present most likely at that special meeting on the 18th. If you want us to go down this road, we will, and we can present, a more complete picture at that time. But if you guys think it's crazy, tell us now. But yeah,
If we want our own water source, we have no
choice.
No choice.
Let's just do it.
And the impacts of not getting our own water source over 30 years is going to be huge.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What he explained in the last meeting.
100%.
I guess, so what I'm hearing is we don't have enough special town meetings this
No,
month.
we don't.
100%.
I say 5:30?
Yeah, 4:30.
All right, well, we'll be seeing a lot of each other. All right.
Just one question real quick. Tom, you probably don't know the answer to this yet, although I think you'll come up with something. Let's say you get the loan or the note. What would be the portion charged to the water users typically? Would it be $20 of pay period, like what dollar amount you think would be
What kind of
passed?
increase would they be looking
Yeah,
at?
what kind of increase? Thank you. Less words is better than more.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
Any idea?
Okay.
When you,
Well, you just gotta take the note, the 10-year note, you're gonna take, say, 490,000, you're gonna amortize it over the period, you can put it in your budget, but, well, in theory, you're gonna save money in water, right? Water purchases, so I think that the intent is economic development, you guys are having the ability to save water.
So,
That,
If you
that,
can
and keep
put-
in mind that currently we're running a surplus with the water as it is today. So, and we didn't see a big, we did not see an increase for this year from MDC. So we should be good with our rates throughout this year, you know, through, at least through this calendar year. We'll see what comes in January, but.
I mean, the goal of this project, as Tom just pointed out, is to lower the water rates.
Yep.
If we are able to become water independent, we would then not be paying MDC, and we could use part of that savings to pay off that note. And so that would be what the goal would be with this project, so.
so I would say,
And-
Ryan, if you guys work out a presentation for us, if you can wrap your hands around that, a number or something close to that, include it in the presentation, so we have something to speak to.
Yeah, no, we have more work to do on that.
Okay.
I think the other context is that what Ryan presented last time, just the increase that MDC was looking for in terms of requiring us to go, you know, up to 400,000 gallons a day to 650, would annually be, I think it was about $481,000 a year. So we're on the right track trying to take care of the ratepayers by doing this.
All right, so we'll revisit this on the 18th, most likely. All right, so any other status reports?
I don't have, no, I missed mine. I was sick. Just move on. Public
Honestly, I have I went to 2 Board of Ed meetings, one on May 21st and one on June 4th, but I can give you these updates next time, so we can move things along tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Okay. So if we're all done with status reports, we'll move to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience?
I just sent you an email about the water infrastructure bill, the federal, it might be worth checking into, so get it. Meg Scotta, 5 Freedom Way. I want to say thank you. I know this is a big challenge. I sat on the Board of Ed, I sat on the Facility Study Committee. I think we're transparent in what our needs were for the schools. And I think the smart thing is to put it to the people and let the public come and talk and ask questions, education and getting the right information. I heard some numbers tonight from another public commenter that are not accurate and could be scary to people. They were escalated in 100 million. So I'm concerned that we get the right information out. John Dillon made a point of saying education, education. I have to believe that the teachers, administrators, the Facility Study Committee, all of you have listened to what the best practices for education are for our kids. Right now, we have unsafe buildings, we have unhealthy buildings. And this plan, while surprising to all of us, you know, we thought we'd close one school, seems like the best. And I know somebody mentioned lunches, you know, from 10:30 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You have to know that administrators are not going to let kids go hungry, or that these lunch waves are not going to work. They will. We'll make it work. So I just hope that you'll trust in the process, trust the public to make good decisions, and know that everybody, I think Mike and Bobby were both on the Facility Study Committee. You know all the plans that we went through, and we parsed everything, and we brought in a couple of additional plans. So I hope that we can just trust that the public will get the right information and that the decision will be made. And I think, as Charles has said any number of times to the Board of Education, we can't not do anything. You know, the buildings are just not, they're crumbling, and they're not going to get any better. So thank you for tonight. I know it's a lot, and this town is small, but I think everybody will pull together and make the right decision. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Anyone else in the audience wants to comment? Is there anyone on Zoom? Just put a note in the chat if you wish to comment publicly. All right, if there's no public comment, we will move on to Board of Selectmen general informal discussion. Does anyone have anything?
Yeah, I only have one thing of relative importance. We did our Highlander Hustle over the weekend, and we had a running bet with the Board of Ed versus Board of Selectmen in terms of total laps run. And I'd like to report that the Board of Ed ran a total of 8 laps around the track, with everyone included. The Board of Selectmen ended up running 107 laps. Ryan did 3, I did the other ones. So we're going to call that a slight.
And
blow
can
my
I-
spot,
can I-
Mike.
Can I just ask, when I went up to see the group, there was somebody that was running the track nonstop all day.
Yes.
Who was that? How far did she go?
So, that's a good point. So Becky Burke is a endurance ultra runner and marathon, so she decided to run all 24 hours. She tried doing this about 4 years ago in the beginning of the pandemic, and did, I think, 77 miles, but she had to stop. She did it on the track, so this was her way to get back there. She wanted to get 85 miles. She got 85.65 miles. Slacker, right?
How long was she running?
She was running for all 24 hours.
Wow.
She took 3 power naps that I know of, or she was sleeping while she was walking. But amazing. We had others that did something like that too. We had a couple of people that did 25 miles, 30 miles, but it was amazing. And I think next year she wants to go for 100.
Will this be an annual event now?
Yes, I'm going to say it will be. And next year you have a chance to get back at it.
I have one question, Mike. How was the noise at night? Was it okay?
It's funny you should bring that up. So we decided to aim the speakers at the track rather than at the people. No, there were no noise issues whatsoever, and thank you very much. So no, it went very well. Pleased to see it was a lot of participation, a lot of fun. Everyone bought in. It was a great time. It was a great time.
I gave a donation to a couple of the students, and
Yes.
I made the point to tell them I was an alumni. When I told them what year I graduated Portland High School, they looked at me kind of like I was Father Time. I couldn't believe it.
They didn't happen to do that number of laps.
All right.
And that is all.
Do we have anything else under general informal discussion?
We hit a lot of it.
Okay. I don't have anything on the follow-up items tonight. We do this, the Board of Selectmen has an executive session with the purposes of a fixed assessment agreement with BRT DeMarco PTP LLC. So I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session and invite Dan Bertram
So moved.
for contract
Yes.
negotiations. Okay.
Yep.
Any discussion on that?
Nope.
See none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so at 9:12 PM, we'll enter executive session, and there will be no action item taken at the end of the meeting, so the board will just come out of executive session and adjourn the meeting. So with that, this will conclude the online portion of the meeting.
Oh, yeah.